Oh, what's going on, guys? Evan, the Diablo 2 enthusiast here, bringing you a Diablo 2 commentary, but not so much over the gameplay. This time, I want to talk briefly about the economy in Diablo 2 Resurrected, how you can manage your trades within the game's universe, and generally how people trade in my experience. I should preface by saying I am by no means an ultra wealthy, rich player. Far from it, in fact. I would be what most folks who are wealthy in the game would call poor. And I'm going to liken this to kind of the general sort of American economy, if you will. So I am sitting, I would say, squarely in the middle class. I have enough items that I can kill every mob in the game. I can kit out multiple playable characters, so I can afford my house with a car in the garage, and I can make payments on things. Only there's no credit system in Diablo 2 Resurrected, but you get the general idea. Compared to the sort of the 1% or even the wealthy class, say millionaires, I am in fact really quite poor by comparison. But compared to folks who are just starting, no generational wealth, don't have a start in life yet, maybe high school student without a lot of going out into the workforce without a lot of money from their parents, things like that. Compared to those folks, I am pretty well off, to give you some context of Diablo 2 to real world. If you want hard numbers, I probably have, less than 50 high runes across all of my characters in game in today's prices, which we'll talk a little bit about. Okay, so trading in Diablo, there are built-in trade functionality into the game for those of you who might be coming from another Blizzard product where trading is less prominent. Trading is very, very prominent in Diablo and always has been, even back when I played the game in the 2000s. And the game allows you to basically open a trade window with another player and barter items to one another. So in the most basic level, in the original sort of format of trading, a player hosts a trade game and brings their items. Other players come in and bring their items, and people trade and discuss and chat and try to work out a trade. That's evolved with time to say people will all jump into a Discord and maybe barter in kind of a Discord server. People trade amongst their friends, just like in the real world, right? If you have a business relationship with somebody, they probably give you a better rate than their published rate on trades and things like that. In practice, though, most players will trade with random sort of public players or other pubs in the game, right? People that you don't necessarily know. And we are going to trade on, if not a barter of similarly valued items, we're going to trade through currency. There is no set currency in the world of Diablo 2 Resurrected from the developer, right? Currency items are items the community itself has discussed and agreed are a sort of a set bucket of value, and that can come in various forms depending on the, basically the rarity or value of the item you're trading. So, some examples might include currency perfect gems and lower ruins like mals, limbs, poles, co-ruins, things like that have functionality in rune words. You can cube them up, you can use them in recipes. Those are kind of your lower end item of currency exchange that you might use to purchase some uniques that aren't high end, although potentially very useful. Maybe some socketed items that have good bases, but a less than ideal number of sockets for some lesser used rune words, things like that. I would say the next big block up is going to be an Ist Ruin, and an Ist Ruin tends to be, a nice stable block of economy that, you could exchange this ruin for most middle of the road to high uniques that aren't really valuable or really rare. Above that, you're going to break into the high ruins, so your jaws, your burrs, which are really the highest of the high ruins, and then you're going to filter down to some lesser desirable ruins, but still pretty useful. Vexes and Gulls, Chams, Zods. All of these will be worth less than Jaw and Bear, but they will be more valuable than an Ist. Above High Ruins, you start to get back into kind of the barter mode where you might have a very valuable unique item like a Griffin's Eye. Griffin's Eye might go for 1-2 high runes, maybe many high runes, depending on the role on the item. And beyond that, you have sort of your ultra super rare small charms. In my experience, tends to be the highest of top end currency. We might need 50 high runes to get one of these charms. I have a total of 0 of these charms in my possession and probably never will. These are like your stock bonds. And one other piece here, there is kind of an aside here, and you can see the accursed tab open above Tradery, which we're going to get into here in a moment. But a last currency is called Forum Gold, which is a currency that exists only within this D2JSP ecosphere, which is a website. It's an old botting website that's continued in the present day. Arguably is an integral part of the Diablo II economy. So love it or hate it, it's here to stay. I kind of think of D2JSP as like your big banks of the world. And, everyone has strong feelings about the banking system, but if you're going to be a capitalist economy, which I would argue Diablo 2 is, at least within the world of gaming, you are going to definitely need some sort of bank, and that tends to be this environment. It's also the closest thing you'd have to a stock market in-game. So we'll talk about D2JSP probably at the very end here, just to wrap up. Okay, so if you were on Tradery and you're looking at this UI, we can search up items here. So if you're new to the game and you're like, okay, I just found, a Harlequin quest. This has to be good. It looks so powerful. Look at the mods on it. We can search up Harlequin quest, and we can use our filters here to determine exactly what our sort of item matches, and rather the stats on our item match what other people have for sale and are trading for, and we can determine if we're ladder or non-ladder. For those of you not familiar with the concept, non-ladder is kind of the eternal world where all characters go to play and rest, and prices within that environment are much different than ladder, which tends to be a defined block of time, let's say 6 months to a year, where every 6 months to a year the economy is completely reset, everyone starts new, and at the end of that ladder season, all of the characters and all of their items get dumped into non-ladder, and the prices can vary tremendously based upon how early it is in the ladder and non-ladder in general. So for example, a Harlequin crest on day one of a new ladder where the economy hasn't been inflated yet, items are very rare, we haven't printed a lot of money, players haven't been able to put a lot of sort of wealth into the economy, if you will, absolutely worth a fortune. By the end of ladder, not worth much of anything. So I like to use this as an item to look at because it is honestly a very powerful item. Shaco or Harlequin crest, absolutely amazing. One of the best caster helms in the game. And if we go on non-ladder and we go for recent trades, you've got one that was given away for free, Pull, Limb, Rao Ruins, Pulls, Limbs, that all falls into that lower end of currency. Hell Ruins, same thing. Perfect Gems, same thing. In other words, these are effectively one of the best and most prolifically used items in the game, and because they are not part of a lot of optimized in-game builds, and that's what most people are going for on non-ladder, as tragic as it is, it's just really not that valuable. If we switch to ladder, mind you, we are towards the end of this ladder season, but still, you have these going for Ist Ruins, Mal Ruins, Ist Ruins, perfect amethysts. The difference in price is astronomical. Although you still see some going here for limbs. Oh, and perfect amethysts are significantly more valuable than other perfect gems. If perfect gems are like the $1 bill, perfect amethysts are like the $10 bill, or some ratio like that. Once again, it's not a perfect science, because there is always kind of this market of it's worth what people will pay, and so these are generalities, not perfect numbers. Okay, so let's go back to non-ladder. And so if we talk about doing sort of bulk trading here, like I said, if we want to exchange our Ort Rune, which I would liken to a $1 bill, if we want to change those into our $50 bill or our $40 bill, there isn't a $40 bill in America, our $50 bill or $100 bill, we need an Ist Ruin. So you can see people are offering 40 Ist for 2 Ist or 1 Vex. If Ist is the $50 bill, Vex is the $100 bill. But if we jump over to your recent trades, you'll see typically people are doing 40 Ort for an Ist, 30 Ort for an Ist. 40 for Ist seems to be the common price point, right? This one's 25. And this is kind of how you can list items and trade through Tradery to set up a trade where people can trade bulk items for kind of that next currency block up. So by extension, we're going to go look at Jaw Ruin, which is presumably the most desirable ruin at this stage in the Diablo II economy, and I imagine will be for some time. So maybe this is like the $1,000 bill. Once again, these are not perfects. You can see we've got, maybe two $500 bills here to get to the $1,000, and so on and so forth. We've got low ruins, also very desirable ruin. And we can kind of scroll here to see our recent trades. And you can see the ruin prices. If we search IST here, you'll see, for example, 11 IST ruins for a jaw. I traded 10 IST for a jaw the other day. And so this is kind of 12 IST for a jaw was an accepted trade. And you can kind of see how you're building up to additional kind of currency. If we grab a random in-game rune word, when players are new, pretty much everybody needs their enigma. Everybody needs an enigma at some point in their character's life cycle. Even if it's a sorceress and you go into enigma and you do recent trades, you can see on ladder, people are trading enigmas for, one jaw, one burr, for low. But that's in a very strong base. But if we go look at some other, one jaw each. So you can get just a basic enigma for a jaw and an archon plate. If you don't have your first enigma, this is the way to go. The reason being, if you want to make an enigma yourself, you'll need to find a base that you like, which should be in a dust shroud or an archon plate. Not really talking about bases in this video, but basically the item you're going to stick the runes in. You'll see you've got, different options here on the market. Less desirable bases will trade for arguably less than the ruins to create it. Whereas perfectly rolled kind of items, say a perfect defense archon plate, is 20 jaw. So astronomically more than just making the rune word yourself. So ultimately my point is, with the way the economy kind of functions, it's often more practical to just buy your enigma for one jaw rune for a basic one than to get a jaw and a bear to make it yourself. So you can kind of see how these things trickle out. Then you wind up looking at some other uniques that are very valuable. Griffins. Can't spell. Can't type either, apparently. Griffin's Eye. You do recent trades. A low rolled Griffins is too low. A higher rolled Griffins is a jaw and a bear. Low rolled again, Gull. You'll see some fluctuation here. Some folks are just looking to let items go quickly to keep the gravy train rolling. Don't want to wait a long time for the right buyer. And of course, the console you're playing on can impact the availability and price of the item as well, but I'm going to stick to PC pricing. If we, just for kicks, go to non-ladder, you'll see our prices have changed dramatically. This, for reference, is a perfect Griffins, and a perfect Griffins is trading for 18 jaw ruins, or give or take, depending on how you're slicing up these numbers. That's at a minimum 18 times what we saw a mid-rolled one for. So it goes to show you that on Diablo 2, as the economy ages, people pay more for perfection. People aren't really looking for what works. They're looking for what is optimal. The cause of that is, once again, inflation typically doesn't go away, right? Like, more and more items are being pumped into the economy as people find the items. More items are floating around in trades. More items are available, and less people are outright quitting or deleting their account with their items. So the values of items are always going to be going down. And with that, only the ultra rare items will either go up in price or maintain steady, in my experience. Okay, so other things impacting the Diablo 2 economy severely. Botting. So Diablo 2 Resurrected, like most repetitive multiplayer games, has a huge problem with bots. Activision Blizzard occasionally does ban waves and bans a bunch of bots, but they will never be able to ban as many botters as there are botters pumping items into the economy. Many of these bots are privately developed and or developed in a non-public location, which makes them harder to ban, of course, because the average end user won't have access to them, but people can pay for bots and do open source bots. And anyway, they'll do repetitive motions, i.e. the classic example is they will run Pindle, which is an easily accessible enemy in the game who can drop high runes and all sorts of items, and just run it 24 hours a day, 365, and they will take the worthwhile items that way, pump them into the economy, and so there is a lot more availability. You'd figure when a new ladder starts, this would alleviate this problem, but bots often quickly invade the new ladder season because these bots are ultimately farming items to be sold in real cash shops. And real cash shops, of course, form the last kind of trade currency economy we're not going to discuss today. But suffice it to say, you can buy a fully decked out character for, cheap cash on the internet if that's kind of your thing. I am not into that, but if you are, that's great. If you're like, I just want to have a highly functional character, I don't care about Blizzard's terms of service because it's not enforced anyway, and there's not a lot of way for Blizzard to know, that is terrific. You could go on one of the many trade sites that are selling in trade sites that Google will happily introduce you to, and you can drop, $20 and have a character that's much stronger than, frankly, most of mine. But if you're playing Diablo 2, my argument would be you're mostly there for the grind anyway. And so what does buying the items really do for you? But that's a personal choice. So once again, items are going down in value. Only the most rare of items are maintaining value. That trend is likely to continue, I would argue, for the rest of the game's existence. And personal opinion, is that good or bad? It depends. It depends on how lucky you are. It depends on what you like. So at this point, it is much, much easier to acquire high ruins than when Diablo II Resurrected first started, partly because there was less bots, there was less items in general, so on and so forth. But you might have to work a long time to get your first Grief Phase Blade or your first Enigma Ruin Word, your first in-game item that drastically changes the effectiveness of your character in one fell swoop, right? We went from a character that was pretty middling, can get through hell mode difficulty, but it's a real struggle, to just, I am my own party, right? Like my character can conquer the entire game and can get through all areas. Those level of items used to take a long time to farm into. Nowadays, if you understand the economy, they are so much cheaper. You can arguably, like in my other video, farm consumable items, which also retain value because they're consumed. So there's less of them in the total economy, if you will. But, quick Enigma, you can make an Enigma without being outrageously lucky in like a month or less with just average playtime. So from an accessibility standpoint, a lot more players have a lot more functional characters, which is pretty great. That said, I would argue that while perfect items, people have always paid a lot more for perfection. With such readily available basic items, items of perfection are outrageously expensive now. So that's another kind of interesting component of the Diablo 2 experience, if you will. So making functional characters, never been cheaper. Making high-end characters, it's as hard as it always was, if not harder. And that's pretty much the Diablo 2 piece in a nutshell. The last thing I want to sort of point out here, mostly for you, Lenny, because you're always asking me if this item has value. If it dropped in normal mode, it probably doesn't have value. Very few exceptions, unless it's a perfect gem. But if you're ever like, man, this looks really good to me, I just want to know, I found this helm. It's a unique, I can't spell these items, I swear. Yeah, there we go. I found this item called Biggin's Bonnet. It was in a unique color from the rest of my items. It was, gold, right? It wasn't yellow. It wasn't blue. I haven't seen anything like this before. The stats are wonderful. What's this worth? You can see it's going for rares and vexes and pools. So if you were to find it Biggin's Bonnet in normal mode, it would actually be fairly valuable relative to most of the other things you'll find in normal mode. And that's simply because this is actually a pretty rare drop, despite not being good for much of anything except early game. I'll also point out, how many of the recent trades and how recent were they? I mean, you don't want to scroll down here and be like, oh, and 2022, it sold for 12 Jaw Ruins. I want 12 Jaw Ruins. Like, no, you want to look, at least within the last month to get a good feel for the pricing. So let's do a small charm. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to do bear small charm. Recent trades. For example, 5 to all resists, 9 gold find, 9 ist ruins, a faster run walk, 1 ist. I think I threw one of these on the ground the other day. That's kind of sad, but perfect lightning resist with some dexterity, 1 low, life and mana, 2 jaw. These are probably your new high-end currency, right? Let's go find. Yeah, there we go. 20 to life. That's a perfect roll on a small charm for life. 5 to all resistances. 40 jaw ruin. So that should give you really, that's arguably 40 enigmas for that one small charm. So we are playing in what I would consider a pretty strange economy in the Diablo 2 universe. Once again, if we want to see if a base we found is worth something, I'm going to go Sacred Targe. This is an Elite Paladin shield. Search it up. Make sure I select ladder or non-ladder. I'm going to do, okay, a Sacred Charge with 4 sockets, empty, and perfect resistance roll, which is 45, is worth a 2-jaw ruin. Sweet. So what if I want to do another filter and I want to say socketed, 3 and 3, because I want to make, a 3-socket shield, so 4 is actually worse for me. So 45 to all resistances, 3 sockets is 4-jaw ruin, so we doubled the price. That is because it is much easier for even the bots to find a 4-socket perfect Sacred Targe than a 3-socket Sacred Targe, and that is because there is a quest in the game that will always give a Sacred Targe the max number of sockets, which is 4. So it is very difficult to find a 3-socket Sacred Targe, much easier to find a 4-socket Sacred Targe. If we go into recent trades, we can also see imperfect goes for a lot less. I mean, this bad boy, for example, is traded for 5-jaw ruins, whereas this traded for 1-jaw or 2 bear, because 37 is not the magical perfect roll of 45. In fact, just for giggles, I want to do all resistance, and I want to do 44 to 44, so 1 off perfect, right? 1 resistance off perfect. 2-jaw, 3-jaw, 3-jaw, 4-jaw. So about, we'll say the average is 4-jaw, and you can probably hold out and get one for 2 if you really try. Let's hit 45 and 45, so 1 more resistance, which from a gameplay perspective won't make a huge difference. We're up to 5, 6. Once again, people pay premiums for perfection. So if you're just getting started out and you're trying to get functional characters and you want to experience the game, you want to trade for imperfection. And if you want the sweet, sweet deals, you want to go for low-rolled items. After you've been playing for a while and you have a nest egg sort of built up, at that point, I think you're better off just trying to trade up for a perfect item. It may not impact the gameplay, but it will definitely impact the retention of the value of the item. So, just some things to think about. I hope this video was informative. And before we wrap, I will once again point out, if you are interested in getting into the banking side of Diablo II Resurrected in the stock market, you want to say get into an early ladder, and I want to try to find, a super good unique in the first, 3 days before the bots flood the economy, and I want to trade my Harlequin crest for 50 times its value in the first week of the game from what it'll be, 2 months later, aka the stock market, and see if the stock goes up. Great. Diablo 2 JSP, you can come here and you can list whatever item you want for FG or Forum Gold, and you can get your 500 Forum Gold for an item that will later be worth, 7 Forum Gold. Pulled this random post to say, and thank you Nike2807 for your help. You picked at random, 10 ist for 7 Forum Gold each. So I guess an ist is worth 7 Forum Gold each, give or take. You can also buy Forum Gold with real life money, once again, if that is your thing. So, once again, I know this video is kind of all over the place, but I just wanted to briefly talk about what it's like to play this game online if you're going to be trading, and how you should be assessing items and worth, and how you can essentially look up an item's value on Tradery or through some Google searching to see if this item that you believe has value actually does or not. So, hope this was useful. I think Lenny will get a real kick out of this one, and I'll see you all next time.